Well, thank you so much for being here with me today, Stephen. I'm Chad, a staff writer at Dread Central, and I want to talk about Sharksploitation.
Oh, right on, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, right out the gate, do you have a favorite shark?
A favorite shark?
Favorite shark?
It's probably the hammerhead. I love
Hammerhead.
hammerhead sharks.
Why the
Yeah.
hammerhead?
I don't know. It's since I was a kid, that was the one. I mean, everyone, all the shark books I used to get when I was a kid after I saw Jaws. At first it was Great White, but then I don't know, there was just something about it that just really stuck out. Oh yeah, and the Goblin shark. That's probably definitely
Goblin
my
shark is a good one.
That's my definite second favorite. 100. I love the Goblin shark, and that was something I became a fan of the Goblin shark as I got older. Because that footage came out where it's like its mouth would extend.
Mhm.
And loved it. So those are. Sorry, I cheated. There's two sharks.
Two sharks is better than one. On a parallel line, do you have a favorite shark movie?
I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, everyone's gonna say Jaws. Jaws is the best shark movie ever made, and it's the movie that changed my life, made me want to become a filmmaker, got me obsessed with sharks, and it's the movie that made me want to watch more shark movies. Like after I saw Jaws as a kid during
I'm
its.
a bear. I'm coming out of hibernation,
Oh,
and
what is
Papa
that?
is hungry.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Oh,
I have a letterbox list of all my favorite shark movies, and I guess there was an ad there that went off, and I was like, "Oh no!" Yeah. So it's definitely Jaws, but I think my second favorite, because that's like just such an easy answer that everyone's here. My second favorite's probably definitely the Deep Blue Sea.
Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
I listen, I am a big fan of Deep Blue Sea. I think that things like Deep Blue Sea, I've always really enjoyed those because I don't think there's any topping Jaws
Mm-mm.
necessarily. So I like when they get a little bit sillier and goofier. That's definitely my guilty pleasure. I'm a big fan, for instance, of 47 Meters Down Uncaged because give me
Mhm.
crazy underwater like albino sharks in ruins because it feels grounded enough in reality, but also divorced enough that I can just really get invested in that.
I need to rewatch it. I saw it in the theaters and I loved it. And
Mhm.
then I was shocked that a lot of people don't talk about it. It's a great film. I'm happy you brought it up. That movie is great. I love it. And I
I think
want
it's
to,
wonderful.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I guess everyone has their own picky thing with shark movies. And I think it's unfortunately everyone compares it to Jaws, which they shouldn't do. I mean, they
Mhm.
are a genre onto themselves, but that's a great movie. I love it. Yeah, I find it really unsettling. When I saw it in the theaters, I was at the edge of my seats and I had a great time. And I was shocked that I wish it would have done better.
I do too. I listen, I would go for 1,000 of those movies. Just keep taking them one additional meter down just for the rest of my life.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what did you like? Did you watch Shark Bait?
I did. That was the one with they were on jet skis, right?
Yeah. And so
Yes.
that one I love, and I'm shocked. And I was so bummed last summer that it didn't get a big theatrical, and it kind of got buried. And I thought when I watched that, I was like, this is solid. And that's another one I think out of the last few years. I think that's next to Deep Blue Sea 3. I think Deep Blue Sea 3 and Sharkbait were solid movies that I don't think
Mhm.
got enough attention, to be
Yeah,
honest.
last summer also had the sequel to The Reef, and I was a big fan of that. So there were a few shark movies last summer that I was like, I wish I had a chance to see these in theaters.
Oh yeah, the Reef would have been awesome theatrically. Last year, where is it? I think I put together this list. I can't find it now. But yeah, man, last year was, I think, a record of shark movies. Like we had, I think the most shark movies that have ever come out came out last year. Oh
Mhm.
no, I'm sorry. It was the year before. Year before, 2021 was like 17 shark movies. But yeah, last year was a solid year. And there's this French shark movie that came out last year that I still can't even watch called what was it called? Summer of the Shark, I think it's called. And that one I'm still dying to see. It got released in France, but not here yet.
I'm making a note of that because French shark movie is right up my alley.
Right. And yeah, I think it's getting released now in Japan. And because I keep seeing, oh, the Year of the Shark, it's called. because I follow a lot. There's a lot of shark fans in Japan, and they follow me, and I follow them, and they've been lately putting up a ton of posters on it, and I'm like, oh, why isn't this here yet? What's going on?
That's gonna be one of those ones that teases me for a while. I'm gonna see it in my
Mhm.
watch list and just wait desperately for it to be released.
Oh, absolutely. I'm hyped.
So shifting, I guess, I know this is probably like a super basic common question, but you seem to be a very big fan of sharks. Is that really, sort of the impetus for shark exploitation, or was there something else that really drew you, I think, to this sort of subgenre to the point that you have this really remarkable sort of deep dive into the history and development of the genre?
Well, I guess, well, yeah, it was definitely as a kid. I mean, as a kid, I was a horror fan. My dad showed me Horror Express. I don't even remember him showing it to me. He showed it to me and it changed my life. Before I could remember, I just watched all horror. But I did see Jaws multiple times during its re-release when it came out because my dad would just come home from work, grab me, and we just go to the movies and see it at any point of the movie. It's just that
Mhm,
would before it came on HBO. I'm old, so that's the way we did it. But I just was always, as I said earlier, I was always trying to catch that shark dragon. I just always wanted to get that. Whenever I'd see a shark in a movie, I get excited. Whenever there was really shark movies coming out, whenever they were on TV, I got excited. It just became one of my favorite genres. And I guess also it's just because it's like that Boba Fett syndrome where, you loved Boba Fett in the original, in the original trilogy because you didn't really know anything about him. He was
mhm.
mysterious. So we didn't get a lot of shark movies. So whenever one would come out or whenever I can get my hands on anything aquatic and horror, I would just like, oh, I'm excited. And then even went beyond sharks. It was just like I said, anything aquatic.
Yeah.
You I just need alligators or octopus or whatever. I just piranha, whatever was in the sea and it was attacking people, I was in. And so I guess what just happened was, was that, Jaws of Revenge came out and there was this long wait for the Deep Blue Sea to come out theatrically. And then we just had all these shark movies after Deep Blue Sea on VHS, and I would watch them all. And we did Jodorowsky's Dune. And when I finished Jodorowsky's Dune, I think it just immediately hit me that maybe I need to do a documentary on shark films. But at first, I was thinking about maybe doing it as a book. That's where I met Josh Miller, and we were thinking about doing it as a book. But I have dyslexia, and I knew that was going to be a challenge. But I know I can do a documentary,
Mhm.
and so I didn't really think much, man. I just started to dive into it a little bit, no pun intended, and just little did I know like how, until I put together an Excel sheet with every shark movie ever made, and it was like past 200, and I'm like, oh my god, there's like 200 shark movies. Like, how am I going to tackle this? But thank God I already started shooting, so there was no going back. It's like I got to finish this thing, and I'm going to make it work. So I have all these in front of me. I have cork boards in my office, so
Mhm.
I had index cards of every decade, all the shark movies, and at one point I was even connecting yarn to shit. And, which was like one of those crazy FBI profiles in the movies. Like I was like, trying to make how do you make this movie work and connective, and it's just not all sharks eating people for an hour and a half because that's just there's no soul to that, and I can't make a documentary without there being like a soul to it. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I just after Jurowski's Dune, coming back to it, it was just the one thing I knew I had to do a documentary I was going to be passionate about because Jurowski's Dune took years to make, and so if something's going to take me a long time to make, at least doing it on shark movies, I can handle that. I can enjoy that.
Absolutely. The Jaws point is really interesting to me because, Jaws was such a focus in Sharksploitation, and then as like an origin for everybody's sort of interest in sharks and shark movies, right? It's really Jaws. And not to throw myself under the bus, but generationally, when I first saw Jaws, I did not like it. I'd grown up on like the Deep Blue Sea. I remember renting a VHS copy of this sort of low budget quasi aquatic horror movie about killer Komodo dragons, just called Komodo. Um, so I
That's
really
awesome.
liked the schlock and the cheese. And so when I saw Jaws for the first time when I was younger, it just didn't resonate with me. I was like, this is too adult. It's
Mhm.
paced in a very, sort of like mature. It's got some blockbuster sensibilities, but it's a smart movie, and I didn't like that as a kid. And I think interestingly, I'm seeing just sort of generationally because I additionally teach. So I have a lot of young students, and Josh just, in terms of like cultural efficacy, I can see it sort of fading away some, which I think is just inevitable as movies get older. Um, which I guess is just to say I find it's very interesting because Jaws is really, the origin of this shark exploitation. And as it gets older and as this sort of subgenre develops, I guess I worry that it's going to lose some of that cultural currency, especially with newer audiences and newer generations, because it definitely plays out very differently than the standard sort of killer shark flick. And not to call my partner into question, but we have repeated debates because he infinitely prefers The Shallows over Jaws. And we go like back and forth in good fun about which is the better movie.
I get it
Mm.
because when I interviewed Misty Tally, who she rules, and her gateway was Jurassic Park,
Mhm.
and then she saw Jaws later on TBS, and then she enjoyed it. And I get it. As you get older, I mean, it's like I grew up with Jaws. I grew up with the original Star Wars, and like one
Mhm.
time I was at Toys R Us and I was watching these some young adults, they were buying the Blu-rays for Star Wars, but the they wanted the prequels, which I like the prequels. I'm one of the rare older people that loves the prequels. And I was asking them, why don't you get the original? You guys aren't into the original three? And the guy was like, nah, man, that was too old. That's too old. And and I got it. I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? Yeah, I totally get it. If you didn't grow up at that time, it's like I totally understand. It's an old movie. It really is. It's just like when it came out, there was nothing like it, and
Mhm.
it really obsessed me and so many other people. And I totally understand a new generation coming out because like I mean, I grew up in a time when there would be marathons of Godzilla on all day, and I would
Yeah.
watch that. But I think it's really cool today, or I don't know how popular it is now, but like maybe 5 years ago, younger people are growing up with these sci-fi channel marathons of these wild, crazy movies, and that's what took over. And
Mhm.
I always, and I think that's really interesting. I wish, in a way, I could see through those eyes of growing up in the 2000s and, with all of these insane movies, like to step in and, and have it open like that. That would be awesome. But I get it. I'm not gonna, everyone has their own opinion on cinema, and it's
Mhm.
about how you grew up and where you are at the time. So I get it. It was just like Jaws at the time, it's the 70s, this overlapping dialogue, the effects. It was just, it's this perfect time capsule of this horror film that came out at that time. So, but yeah, Shallows is a fantastic movie. I get why, it's incredible. So I can see
Mhm.
why younger people can come to that. Like I said, like when I rewatch the original Star Wars through thinking about younger people, that guy I met at Toys R Us, I'm like, I could totally see why they're not into this and why they like the prequels.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Well, I am a, firm 2000s kid, so those Sci-Fi Channel originals were my bread and butter growing up.
oh, dude, they're great, and I like those films. And there was one person when I told them I was making this documentary, they're like, "I hope you don't put the Sci-Fi Channel movies in there." And I was like, "What are you kidding? I have to." They're like, "Why am I not going to put that in the movie? They are a major part of this genre." And in a way, I think what's important about those Sci-Fi Channel movies, and it's mentioned briefly in the documentary by one of the Asylum guys, is that they kind of made sharks not so scary.
Mhm.
They kind of make them more likable than the 70s movies and the 80s, like what they were doing the sharks in those films compared to now. Now they're fun in a way, and I
Mhm.
totally, and I that's what I love what those movies did for sharks. They kind of made them fun. And I'm a defender of Asylum and Wild Eye Releasing. I love what they do. They're in on they know what they're making. And when people like turn up to them like, oh, what are those stupid movies? I was like, nah, they're not. They know what they're making. People, they wouldn't be making those movies if people weren't watching them.
Yeah.
There's an audience like myself that knows how to turn off its brain and enjoy something. It's just, I don't know, but it
No,
always gets me upset when people talk crap about the asylum. I love what they do, and without them, well, what are you really watching? I mean, you need that stuff. You need that stuff you need that stuff in the mix. It's important.
no, I wholeheartedly agree. That was actually one of my favorite. It's a very brief note, and I can't remember who mentioned it in the documentary, but they talked about these sort of micro budget shark features, and really sort of, I guess, the metric for like, am I going to enjoy this, micro budget cheapo shark movie is a matter of heart. And even in the Sci-Fi Channel originals, like there's heart, I think, in those movies, like from the creators, like the writers, the people developing them, like they know, like you said, they know what they're doing and they care about it enough that it doesn't just feel like a bad movie. It feels like you're in on it with them and everyone is just having a really, really great time. Um, and I love
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. Like the guy in the documentary did Six-Headed Shark Attack. It was a movie I wasn't able to feature, unfortunately, in the documentary. He made a Mark Atkins, a great journeyman director, man. He's awesome. And he made Planet of the Sharks and Empire of the Sharks, which is like Waterworld with sharks, man. It is
Love
they're
that.
enjoyable movies. Like I love those movies, and I appreciate what he does. And I think I'm kind of bummed now because we had that Sharknado Rift come out. And when Sharknado came out, Sci-Fi Channel did this thing called Sharknado Week, where every night they would premiere a new shark movie. And I really missed that. That was like one of my favorite events on television, and it's gone now. You know,
Mhm.
that's where Planet of the Sharks premiered, and so many great like shark films, sci-fi era shark films premiered. And I am saying great because a lot of them are great. I think they are.
I
You
don't,
know,
yeah, no. I'm
yeah.
as someone who like raced home to see Dino Croc when I was like in fifth grade, I wish I could have that sort of Saturday night back, or like you said, that week-long marathon of like, give me these movies. Because now I know, regularly I'm stumbling upon them on like Tubi, or
Mhm.
like you mentioned, the Year of the Shark, right? I don't feel like I'm quite as enmeshed in it now. Because there's so many different distribution channels, so many different people working on these things, and it's tricky to really turn it into an event. And I like the idea of like a shark event, right? Like everybody sort of coming together for like Jaws and admittedly even Sharknado, right? Like everybody is there for this one shark movie. And
I,
I'd like
I
to see that
agree.
again.
Dude, totally. And that was people can talk shit about the Sharknado sequels, but Sharknado is a great movie. I think it's a great movie. I think Sharknado 2 is really great too because they changed the formula to we're just going to have cameos, and then from that moment on the Sharknado series took on what Sharknado 2 was. I think Sharknado 1 is fantastic because they didn't know what it was going to be, and they made this pure shark movie disaster film, and it's awesome. But
Mhm.
thank God for the Sharknado sequels because, like I said, we had Sharknado Week, and Sharknado Week premiered so many awesome movies. Like I would DVR all those movies on Sharknado Week, and I would watch some of them live and some of them throughout the summer. And that's where Misty tallies in my movie because I watched, I think it was Mississippi River Sharks when it premiered. And when that movie ended, because I thought it was fun and I saw her name up, and immediately, I swear, like the next week, I just reached out to her. I was like, saw your movie. It's awesome. I really want you in my documentary. Yeah, and that was 2017. I've been working on this thing for a long time because you can see there's 200 shark movies. And
Yeah.
when I started it, it was just about it was whenever I had time, I would try to find someone that would talk to me and just get them on camera. That's
Hmm.
how it started. But I knew I wanted her because I was like, man, your movie has humor, it's fun, and she's made, now she made Santa Jaws, which is like a holiday classic for me. I
Yeah.
watch all the time. And Zombie Shark is so much fun. She's great. But anyway, that Sharknado week is where, oh man, I miss it. There was so
Yeah.
many. Nightmare Shark that premiered on Sharknado Week. And Nightmare Shark is great, man. I love Nightmare Shark. It's just, people in a cabin and they're having these dreams with the same shark, and it's so inventive. I miss it. I
I'm
can keep going.
wholeheartedly
I can go on and on. I'm going to
yeah.
stop about Sharknado Week movies because I remember them all, because that was my favorite week of television.
Mhm. Let me ask you, are you by any chance you play video games?
Sometimes as I get older, I just think a lot of I don't know, as no, I do play. I play casually now versus when I did like
Mhm.
years ago. I used to play constantly.
Yeah. So I grew up and there's this really old game. It was on the PlayStation 2. I think it's just called Jaws. And you just play as the shark and you just swim around,
Yes.
and you eat people. And there's a sort of spiritual successor that's a little bit more recent called Maneater. And you get to just like play as a shark. You get to swim around in different like biomes. You get to upgrade your shark. And that to me feels like the natural endpoint of like my shark fascination is like now I get to be the shark. I get to play as the shark. I get to chomp down on everybody. So if you haven't played those, I would recommend those because it is shark fantasy through and through.
I played Jaws: The Revenge on the NES like you wouldn't like. I still hook up my old NES just to play Jaws: The Revenge. I did play the Jaws PlayStation 2 game came out right at the end of when I was stopping with PlayStation 2, so I have it, but I didn't play it much, and I was terrible at it. But Maneater I bought last year for Christmas, and I did mess around with it a little bit. I enjoyed it. It was a very, I haven't, one of these days, I still want to put it on and mess around with it again.
Yeah,
It was actually a very peaceful game in a way. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed just
I
swimming
just
around.
yes,
Yeah.
swimming around.
Yeah. I found it to be very peaceful, very
Mhm.
zen game. Yeah. I am a fan. I haven't tried any of the add-ons or upgraded the shark
Oh
running.
no, yeah,
Sometimes I have to.
no, it's a delight. Just to wrap today, so I wanted to touch at least a little bit on the idea of shark conservation because that to me, sort of as like an capstone to the documentary was, it was really affecting to me as someone who cares about sharks, who lives in Florida and cares, I think, just about, marine ecosystems in general. Do you see a role with the shark exploitation subgenre in terms of like really trying to change the tide of like public opinion? Because I think right now, at least from my perspective here in Florida, it's less now that sharks are like these evil, awful monsters. Even though people certainly still treat them that way. At my local beaches, for instance, there's panic every time there is a shark spotting. Um, but I think more so it's shifted to this sort of place of indifference that whether they're here or not, it's not necessarily something people are all that concerned about. Do you see the shark exploitation subgenre as having like a role in trying to change the public perception of like shark conservation?
I, yeah, I think some movies are now touching on it. I can't remember because I've watched so many of these films, and sometimes some of them blur the lines. But there are definitely some of these lower budget ones that do put that point across in them now more than ever, which is cool to see. Like when Jaws came out, it wasn't their fault for
Hmm.
what happened. It was just that Spielberg is way too talented of a director and made too good of a movie that freaked people out like myself. And I was terrified of them for years. And then when I started making this movie, it's like I used to go fishing all the time. I can't fish anymore. I can't. I am so sensitive to fish, because of this documentary. But I do think a lot of newer movies, and I'm sorry because a lot of them meld because I've watched so many. Like I do see a lot of that in these films now, and I think that's awesome. And I think the thing that just keeps hurting us is the media. Like the
Hmm.
media is constantly the shark spotted on this by this beach, and it's like, yeah, because they swim in the ocean. Of
Yeah,
course, they're
it's
gonna
where
be
they
there.
live.
Yeah, and when people in boats and restaurants are going to constantly dump stuff into the ocean, the sharks are going to get attracted to them and come towards our beaches too. And sharks swim in the ocean. Like God knows what kind of pollution we've done to the ocean to push the sharks closer to shore as well. I mean, there's so many. I mean, and so yeah, it was important for us to put that in the movie. It's like, you know, it's like what the media does is just awful about this species. And the same thing with YouTube videos. When you go on YouTube, you see these little thumbnails of a guy swimming and a massive shark about to attack him. And so you could click on it to watch someone, you know, get attacked. It's like, really? It's like, it's really messed up, you know? It's like, you know, same thing. I mean, one last thing. It's like, I can't watch Shark Week anymore because a lot of I used to love Shark Week when it first started because it was just going underwater and looking at sharks.
Mhm.
That's all I want to. I want to just look at sharks.
Look at
I
sharks.
don't like seeing sharks grabbed and put on a boat and being tagged. It's such, you know, if they have to do it, do it. But I just don't like seeing that. And I don't like seeing these specials over and over again on shark attacks. It's
Mhm.
like last year, I think it was on Shark Week, there was so many shark attack specials. Like, what is this? Like, where's just going in the ocean and looking at sharks? I miss that, you know? I just miss that stuff. But yeah, I think it's like the media and the way they portray sharks. They're still doing it. It's always
Mhm.
on the news. You know, it's always on. I have like, you know, search Google alerts on sharks. That's constantly shark spotted here and sharks, you know, and it's like, yo, polluting their environment. No wonder, you know, they're acting the way they are. That's my
Yeah.
opinion. You know, people can call me crazy, but that's, you know, that's what I feel.
No, I agree with you 100%. I love sharks. I love the ocean, and I mean, certainly it can be scary at times, but,
Oh
um,
yeah.
I think there's a difference between being afraid and, doing harm because you're afraid, which unfortunately is what some people tend to do.
Oh yeah, it's awful when people like will see a shark and they'll drag it out of the water because they're trying to protect people. And it's just like, what are you doing? It's like those videos are hard to watch, you
Yeah.
know. But I'm with you, man. It's like, but I'm not, you know, I don't really go in the ocean because I am scared of sharks too. You know, I'm not gonna lie, because you know, it's not like, you know, I I get what they are. You know, it's like when I go camping, I'll be, if I go camping again, I'm gonna be terrified of bears. It's just the way it is. There's animals out there that, you
Yeah.
know.
Listen, I'm in a part of Florida. The common wisdom that you have to abide by is if it is a body of water, there is an alligator in there. You have
Yes.
to presume that from the get. Doesn't matter if it's a neighborhood lake, even, residential
Mhm.
swimming pools, like, there will be an alligator in there at some point. It's best practice, just presume there is from the start.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I can imagine. That's another favorite genre of mine, probably yours also.
Oh, no, yes. Listen, I saw crawl, like, 20 times.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Crawl's a masterpiece. I'm excited to see The Flood. I just read about that. I've been following that for the last couple of months. That'll look
Oh, yeah,
interesting.
the prison one, right? With the
Yeah, I wanted to see
yeah.
that.
I
But
haven't had a chance to see it.
Crawl's a masterpiece. Oh my God.
Crawl took everything. It took hurricanes and
Yeah.
alligators and squashed them together. I said, "This is my horror movie."
Oh man. And that came out the same summer of 47 meters down uncaged. It was like a repeat of the summer of Bleak Placid and Deep Blue Sea, you know. That was a great summer, those two movies.
And
Oh
I'm
my,
putting it into the universe now that we get another summer like that.
I can't wait. Yeah. I guess this year we have The Flood and we have Meg 2. We'll
Oh,
see.
Meg too. Yes, I keep forgetting.
Oh, it's right on my calendar. I can't wait. I stayed away from all the trailers too. I'm like, I am hyped.
I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, same here.
Um,
It's the year of the Statham, man. It's like Fast X, Expendables 4, and I'm hyped.
all right. Well, I really appreciate you spending some time to chat with me today. Thank you so
Thanks,
much for being
Chad.
here. Yeah, and thank you from everyone over at Dread Central.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you,
Thanks,
man. It was a pleasure
Steven.
talking to you.
Let us know if you need anything else, Chad. We're
Of
here.
course. I really appreciate it.
Steven, I'll hook up with you in